Title 17 U.S. Code, Sections 107 to 108 of the Copyright Law. All media in this video is used for the purpose of review and commentary under terms of fair use. All footage, music and images used belong to their respective companies. Also YouTube, please, for the love of gun X sword the perfect anime, fix your broken system when you are able, because Quint will blame me.
Greetings, comrades, and hello, everyone. I'm Quint866. And welcome back to the Anime Memories Retrospective. Before we begin, I have to give a shout out to someone who might possibly be doing some art for me in the future. Fellca, I hope I pronounced that right, had offered to make me a vtubing avatar, thinking it might be an amusing way to spice up the Anime Memories Retrospective. Plus, with my Catboy aesthetic going on, I thought it might actually be a fun little addition to have to these videos. It also would make it a lot easier / quicker to make these videos, because that way I won't have to clean my room or shave as much when recording. However, I don't know if I'm going to go through with that yet, given my current financial situation, because I recently landed a new job. That and me wallet doesn't exactly have a consistent string of bills to pour out. Oh hey, a quarter! Even so, I did commission a set of pictures of Vale from Fire Emblem Engage, and they did a really good job coming out. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty impressed with both the normal and dark variants. So, credit where it's due. Good work, Fellca! Seriously, I really hope I pronounced that correctly. So yeah, please consider stopping by and giving Fellca, Fellca some attention too. Who knows? Maybe you'll commission something just like I did. Links right here or in the description below. Obligatory shout-out section is done. Now, let's get into the review proper.
Dear brother, it's time to go.
No. Wrong. We're reviewing this. Actually, that could have been a good segue line now that I think about it.
Haven't you realized that the fate of the entire world depends on what happens to that girl?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry I snapped.
Gasp! The overly long intro segment has returned? What are you thinking, Quint? Honestly, I just wanted to do this for this one video. No real special reason, I just felt like doing it here. Blue Seed, man, what an experience this was. I mean, that should grab your attention, since I've seen plenty of anime ranging from mainline modern franchises that gain tons of popularity, cult classics that will be remembered in the Anime Hall of Fame, divisive series either love or hate, or even some incredibly obscure pieces of media that I am convinced I'm the only one who remembers or talks about. Seriously though, Blue Seed is unlike anything I've ever seen, and I'm saying that as someone who's seen an anime about a 25-year-old legendary gunslinger in the body of a 10-year-old. What could possibly be more out there than that? That being said, like Wild Arms Twilight Venom, Blue Seed is kind of obscure, or at the very least forgotten. I'm sure many people may have actually watched it, but they probably just don't talk about it. The opening, though, I absolutely love. The intro theme, Carnival Babel. Yeah, I know the intro, overly long opening segment of my videos has been kind of a tradition of the past, but I really felt the need to do it because, yes, I lied, there is a reason. I genuinely love this intro that much. Visually speaking, this anime is actually pretty impressive for the time it came out. The music is banging, and most underratedly, it doesn't spoil anything. Yes, you heard me correctly. Sure, it does show a couple things that I guess you could consider spoilery, like Kusanagi's transformation or Momiji's embedded blue seed, but it's ambiguous enough that I don't think you could really piece together the dots, and most of that stuff is answered within the first episode anyways. Meanwhile, other animes, they show off characters you'll meet way later down the line, reveal faces of villains, etc. So this opening really doesn't spoil that much, and that's kind of an underrated aspect of it. However, though, now that I mentioned spoilers, what exactly is Blue Seed genre-wise? Well, that's a little tricky to nail down, surprisingly. Blue Seed is a lot of things. In fact, it covers a pretty wide catalog of genres you normally think would not mix all that well together. Does this sound familiar already?
Anyone home?
Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Don't worry. It's not a case of the genre identity crisis I've described in many other videos. I know I usually reserve the term genre identity crisis for critical remarks, but there are series that do this sort of thing correctly. Cowboy Bebop and Full Metal Panic to name a few. See, series like that are built around multiple genre chefs, and it works. And Blue Seed, I think, is another example to add to the positive list. Reasonably speaking, give or take. It's got sci-fi elements with all the tech and gear, there's fantasy elements with monsters attacking people, plenty of action scenes, some romance, though it's actually pretty light in retrospect, and those are some of the more normal genres. Blue Seed has a whole other slew of genres that almost impresses me for sticking together. There's mythological aspects, psychology, though like the romance, it's lightly played, and even a bit of horror in some cases, though I do credit that to the monster designs more than anything. Altogether, this sounds like a mix that just will not work, and I'll readily admit I was skeptical myself, especially with this series only being 26 episodes, not counting the OVAs or extra stuff. It managed to squeeze it all together decently enough. I think that summarizes the general introduction phase, though. Now let's talk about the world, which will naturally have me talk about visuals and audio as well.
However, every year a monster, with one body, 8 heads, and flame-red eyes, the Orochi no Orochi, would come to eat one of the daughters. At last, there was only one daughter left, and the old parents were reduced to tears.
I was certainly intrigued by the style they were going for here. It takes place in, well, what was, at the time, a modern-day Japanese town. Surprise, surprise. Yes, we're going there again. To any veterans of the Anime Memories retrospective, you'll know that I'm not exactly the most fond of this retreading world. It seems like no matter what anime you go to, it's always just Japanese towns. Not that I have anything against that, mind you. I just kind of want to see something new, even if it has to be in a Japanese town. Which, luckily, Blue Seed delivers. It's in no way guilty of this, since, while yes, it is very much a Japanese town, it still has its own unique draw to it. I really give that to the credit of the monsters again. These things really make the world pop out, and are just genuinely threatening. Visually speaking, I think the series looks pretty damn good for the time, and I'd even argue still holds up now to some extent. Sure, cel-shaded animation people can gripe about, and it is a bit of a nostalgia thing, I won't deny. Unlike other series I've covered, like Trigun or WATV, I think Blue Seed is a bit more consistent with its characters and visuals. There is less goofy, over-the-top expressions and moments of animation dipping, which helps it feel really immersive. That's not to say they aren't there at all, since there's plenty of times our characters will make really, admittedly over-the-top expressions, but I feel like that almost helps in the craze of Blue Seed, since the series undeniably has a lot of craze for it. So having the animation kind of whack out for a few frames, especially with the monsters, I think actually fits well within the narrative. Still, I could really do without the damn panty shots. Seriously, Yageshi, clear your damn browser history, man. Yeah, I think visually speaking, Blue Seed has a lot I appreciate. I really love the character designs, and speaking of which, I think they're pretty unique. The human characters are both unique with their colorings, body types, and they stand out to not feel like just generic villagers or whatever. The monsters, while I will admit they are mostly plant-based, so their themes can be a little one-track, they still have many great abilities, and like I said, they can be genuinely scary. And when the series wants to get dark, it gives this great, like, moonlit city vibe. A lot like Sailor Moon, actually. And, yeah, I think visually speaking, this world is pretty damn good. I will say, though, Blue Seed's world ain't perfect, and I do got me gripes. In fact, the audio of Blue Seed hasn't exactly aged the best, let's just say. Not the music is totally fine. Although I will admit, I can't actually find the soundtrack for Blue Seed. The only one I could had all the vocal themes, none of the actual background music or tracks from the show's OST. If anyone can find these, please let me know, I genuinely like to see them. Though the opening theme rocks, so I'm not complaining too much. Nah! The music's great! When I said the audio hasn't aged well, I'm more referring to the voice acting. While it's not as outrageous as something like Cloverway's Sailor Moon, in fact, to give credit where it's due real quickly, at least Blue Seed's actors fit the characters and personalities, whereas for Cloverway's Sailor Moon, not so much. Even if the voice actors in Blue Seed do fit the personalities, this isn't that much of a saving grace, since a lot of the lines are just really weirdly delivered. I mean, it gets a little bit better when you watch it and get used to it, but it is a really sudden shift, and it makes some of the earlier episodes make me wonder if maybe the actors had a hard time getting into character. Like, Kusanagi's a laid-back and chill guy, sure, but when going through his phase in the first couple of episodes, it makes his dialogue, with what he's saying, feel really not that naturally delivered at all.
Now, I'm very sorry about this, but I have to kill you.
How can I take Kusanagi seriously in this scene when he says the words, "I have to kill you," in the most chill way I've honestly ever heard?
I have to kill you.
Or even some, like, really amateur audio mixing decisions, like how Murakumo sounds like this in his first appearance.
Interesting. I didn't know the Kushinada was with you.
Who are you?
Yeah.
I am called Murakumo.
Yet in episode 12, there's this weird robotic filter effect over his voice.
Oh, not you again. But that's alright. I've already finished my latest masterpiece.
Yet, following that, he goes back to his normal voice. So, what the frick was the point of the robotic effect only in episode 12?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah?
I'm afraid that you just weren't invited.
Also, a little bit of a fun fact here, Kome, character who actually made my top 10 list of underrated anime characters, is actually voiced by the same actress who did Satella in Chrono Crusade.
I searched, and I searched and searched. And before I had realized it, 10 years had passed away in the blink of an eye.
Isn't Kome talking about love, one of the signs of the apocalypse?
Yeah, here come the four horsemen! Clippity-clop, clippity-clop, clippity-clop!
This genuinely surprises me with the fact that these two characters are radically different, yet the voice actress delivers them in a, well, radically different way. Are there any other characters this voice actress did that I would know of?
No matter what, I'll put Ray and Misato to shame!
But still, you don't have to squash them.
You're being too simplistic, even if you are a male. I must avenge myself. My pride. It's a matter of honor now. Can't you understand that?
Oh god, no! I mean, it doesn't ruin the series or anything. The voice acting, especially if you are seeing a bunch of old-timey anime, you're probably used to that sort of thing, but I figured it'd be worth pointing out. And honestly, I've seen worse voice acting. I'm actually surprised that, while iffy deliveries, at least they fit their characters. However, if I can do without the panty shots, I can also really do without the screaming. Shut up, would you? You two! So, to conclude the world section, allow me to say, I think the world is decent. Audio and a few visual gags aside, I like what we have here. It's nothing mind-blowing, but honestly, it's just refreshing to have something unique in the massive plethora of Japanese towns you see in anime, and what we got here, you know, aside from those minor gripes, I really can't complain too much. That, and I can't really set too unreal expectations, since it was an anime made in... I don't actually know the date off the top of my head, but I know it's old, so that's all that matters. But now let's talk about the characters, since, well, are they as dated as the anime?
I can't do this. I'm going home. Huh?
So, are we finding out that the spotlight's just a little too hot for you? Silly sacrifice.
My name is Momiji, you tramp!
Your name is Mud. Now watch closely and you'll see how a real superstar handles an audience. Take notes.
Okie dokie. Since I've still been trying to modify my reviewing or scripting structure here and there, I've been having to dial back on the rants or describing stuff that people normally would not focus on in reviews. So, I apologize to the times I listed every single monster of the week in Chrono Crusade, or the amount of sides and their nicknames of Black Blood Brothers. I know that I'm known for overanalyzing, but I want to try and get reviews out a little bit more consistently because my upload schedule's been slow with the new job, so I'm going to have to cut back a little bit of reviewing content somewhere. But of course, I'll still go over noteworthy stuff, since that's probably what you're here for anyways. Blue Seed, like Hellsing, divides its protagonistic focus to two characters, a main girl and a main boy, a lot like how Alucard and Saris worked. Momiji is the primary female character, as well as the one who does the most amount of screaming in episodes 1 and 2. We've been over this, Momiji. You don't need to prove my point any further. Screaming aside, I think Momiji is a great main female. Normally, this sort of character is written off as a motivational support or a damsel distress, to which I absolutely cannot get behind these criticisms. In almost any context. Like Asuna in Fairy Dance Arc. She was fine there, folks. If anything, I have more problems with Aincrad Asuna, but this isn't a video of me defending SAO. Momiji is fascinating to me for both how simple yet layered she is. A typical high school student, her family is of devout following with her being a shrine maiden. I wonder if she'd get along with Sailor Mars. Her personality is cautious yet determined. She's raised to be the Princess Kushinada, which is said to protect the world from the origami monsters. Of course, Momiji is totally clueless to this, and thinks it's just a bunch of mythological mutterings. With the death of her older sister Katie, who she herself was not that close to, mind you, it all sounds just a little bit too convenient to her. However, when she finally does realize the origami do exist, she's taken in by the TAC organization. Momiji has a lot on her mind going for it, seeing why Katie sacrificed herself to put the origami to sleep. Of course, the TAC doesn't want to sacrifice Momiji and are doing everything in their power to come up with a way to defeat the monstrous menace without the need for bloodshed. I really like how Momiji, and everyone else for that matter, don't feel like dead weight. All the members of the TAC have their respective roles and strengths to offer in completing their end goal, as well as their own personal objectives and motivations. Momiji, having a Mitama embedded into her body, can both sense the origami, as well as her actually being crucial as the new Kushinada, in convincing Kusanagi to help them out. I think Momiji is an incredibly underrated main female in anime that deserves more attention for striking a good balance of feeling both normal while also getting into her new role in a natural way. Zero to Hero is nothing new for story writing, but Momiji does it really well, and her interactions with all the TAC members I find really fun and entertaining to watch. Kusanagi, the main guy, is actually a human boy who had been given several Mitamas by Orochi many years ago, turning him into a sort of human origami hybrid, intending to act as a protector to the Kushinada as well as being a spy for Orochi. This would give the origami leads on the Kushinada's status. Kusanagi wasn't really interested in being a puppet of the origami, yet he went along with it anyways out of curiosity. Naturally, he fell in love with Katie, and the two got along really well, thus making him as Orochi's pawn useless. However, Kusanagi has been dealing with a lack of purpose following the death of Katie, and he originally had no qualms with killing Momiji, seeing as when she dies, or any of the Kushinada dies, all the origami will be sealed. Of course, she doesn't let him, and he gradually begins to find purpose in protecting her once finding out she is Katie's sister. He becomes a necessary link between the TAC and the origami, and the dude has a lot of really cool powers. I also like it that Kusanagi is actually a pretty laid-back guy. I originally thought this was going to turn into a whole temperamental, angry kind of thing, but Kusanagi's just really chill. He just had to really get over his angsty phase was all. But yes, as I said before, the other members of the TAC I really like, because they don't feel like throwaway sides or supports. They actually contribute greatly to the end goal. Kunikita is the leader of the group, a man with a noble goal, as well as Katie's foster father. He originally wanted to find a way to seal the ancient origami without having to use the Kushinada. But Katie ended up sacrificing herself anyways, and while it did bring peace, it was only temporary, seeing as the origami are back. And he knows, with Momiji being the last of the Kushinada's bloodline, she needs to be with the professionals who know how to protect her. While he might seem like a serious and upfront guy, he is a really nice person at heart, and genuinely has a soft side. Lad also has the heart to drive, and act as an Uber for needed transportation. His absolute best trait, though, is communications. The man keeps in regular contact with both his subordinates and the government, since they don't want people finding out that the monsters are all roaming around Japan. Although it does kind of get lifted late series when the origami do more bombastic things, he still keeps a level head and really acts as like a good leader. A weakness is that he can be a bit overprotective and a bit presumptuous at times. There's a handful of times where he thinks he's got things handled, but he really should open up a little bit more. That being said, I really like Kunikita, and his knack for puns is genuinely amusing to me.
It would be very sticky, like a bag of gummy bears. Or should I say, like origami bears. Origami... Origami bears!
The one time the awkward voice acting actually makes it better. The one time! Takeuchi is a former policewoman and acts as another leading figure of the TAC. She's dedicated to her job, empathetic, and understanding, as well as acting as a good voice of reason to the group. She can effectively defend herself, having firearms training and all that police stuff, go figure. Like Kunikita, she drives a lot, though she's not as much of a dedicated Lyft or Uber driver. I like how each member of the TAC has their skill sets and weaknesses, since it helps making them feel more human, and I really did root for these folks to make it in their battles against the origami. Takeuchi is probably the least weak of the bunch, since she doesn't have as many noticeable flaws, though I suppose she can be a bit hesitant sometimes and won't take action unless it specifically says in the rules. She and Kunikina do enter a deeper relationship as the series goes on, but like I said, the romance is pretty light in this series. On the other hand, Komei's the total opposite, where she doesn't hesitate enough. She's a military woman with all the heavy weaponry and artillery you could expect. Hot-headed and tempered, she definitely goes into the situation guns a-blazing. To give her credit, she is a capable fighter as well as the most strong of the group, but she's a bit too battle-eager sometimes. When it comes to teamwork, she can also be kind of insubordinate. And unlike Takeuchi, she doesn't hold back enough, even when she really should. Still though, I really do enjoy Komei, and she made my list of top 10 underrated anime sites for good reason. And by the end of the series, she's probably the character that went through the biggest change, turning from a gung-ho warrior and loner to a valued teammate who could swallow her pride and fight for the bigger picture. And to that, I really have to say, Blue Seed 1, Evangelion 0. Matsudera is a unique one. She's the equipment and science hardware-oriented researcher, usually developing gear and studying up on the Aragami's actions. She's actually divorced from her husband and child, since work had pried her away from her family so much it just wasn't working out anymore. Dark implications aside, it's surprising to see she still remains on the TAC, since she knows her skills can be put to good use, and the TAC need a brainy scientist to do all the mental work on the fly, as well as her knowing that the Aragami are a constant menace to other families, not just hers. Yagashi is the nerd of the group, more so of the software and computer guy, as opposed to Matsudera, who's the hardware and book person. His research goes into similar scientific areas as Matsudera, but he's got a bit of a wimpy side to him. He does have a braver arc that comes in as the series goes on, making him kind of similar to Momiji in that way. Both are zeros to heroes in their own unique ways. But Yagashi also has a bit of a feeling like he's not doing enough to contribute to the organization and underplaying his role. So it comes to him having to accept that he's just as important as everyone else. And finally, Sakura acts as a sort of rival to Momiji. She's a priestess too who practices Shinto magic as well as wanting to be an idol. I have the least to say about her since she's the last major character to be introduced, but she's good for some comic relief and does genuinely help out on the spiritual side of things. She does start to develop a crush on Kusanagi, and while I am not a fan of love triangles, this one actually doesn't outstay its welcome, and because Blue Seed's romance is really light, I'm actually okay with it. Yeah, shocking coming from me, I know. As for the villains, there actually aren't that many in Blue Seed. Aside from Orochi, who is both the first villain to appear, as well as one of the few villains to get named, he's also, now that I think about it, the monster based off of the mythological aspects of the series. Blue Seed instead goes for more of a monster/minion of the week type threat direction in its writing. Now that might sound disappointing, since while that kind of threat structure could be fine back then, nowadays, when we have more intricate stories with villains that have actual motives, the simplicity of just a big aggressive monster can feel a bit underwhelming, I'll admit. It's an antagonistic setup that has been admittedly falling out of date, but I must be honest, these are some of the best monsters of the week type creatures I've seen yet in anime. Unlike Sailor Moon where fight scenes were a joke, or in Wild Arms where they just sort of appeared, in Blue Sea the Aragami all feel like a decent spectacle and natural evolution of threats and scale. Despite them having the unique plant/bug theme, they all have varying powers, sizes, weaknesses, and pretty good fights. Whether it be Orochi, the Hive Spider, the Parasite Mayor, or the Water Nucleus thing, these monsters both look cool and are cool, and I quite dig it. Of course, it's not that way for the whole series. Obviously, there is a set of masterminds behind the Aragami attacks. I'll talk about the big bads in the story segment, though. However, if you want my general opinion of them here, I'll say that I found them fascinating and well written just like the rest of the cast. I'll get to it when I talk about the main story. Don't worry, I'm not cheating y'all out of content. Alright, this is by far the most consistent cast we've had in the retrospective yet. I wouldn't say the best, mind you. I think Chrono Crusade, Cardcaptor Sakura probably have higher highs. But here in Blue Sea, there really isn't any character I felt that was, like, bad or I wanted more out of. They all delivered on their purposes nicely, and honestly, it's just refreshing not feeling like I wanted more or wanted something gone. I generally think every character, ranging from mains, sides, one-offs, monsters, villains, or even just the generic townsfolk, they're all solid, and any possible shortcomings I feel like there's decent justification for. And it's just weird having nothing really big to complain about. Of course, and I know I've said it multiple times in other videos, anime for me is a form of storytelling. So the story should be the focus. You can have good characters, good visuals, good audio, and all that, but I look for story. And how does Blue Seed's story hold up? Well, I'm gonna make it no secret. I enjoyed it a lot. So let's dive into the story section and see why I enjoyed it so much.
Stop, sir! Don't walk that way!
What's wrong, Takeuchi?
Take a look at the ground.
Huh? Oh! The ground's drawn on an animation cell! How many animation characters have died because they failed to recognize it? You did a great job. Thank you for finding it. Ah! Oh, shit! They did a really complicated animation sequence there!
Story, story, story. How I love a good story. Blue Seed's lore is both clever, how it uses mythology as a foundation for its story, while also adapting its mythological themes in a unique way. Like how God of War Ragnarok painted Odin as a villain, or how other series reinterpret certain mythological characters in unique contexts, Blue Seed does this for the tale of Kushinada, Susanoo, and Orochi. Without going into a big history lesson, the short version is this, which the anime itself handily puts in for those who don't know. A long time ago, there was a husband and wife, both spiritual practitioners. They had multiple daughters, but a multi-headed serpent monster called Orochi had taken the daughters one by one and ate them until there was only one daughter remaining. The parents, mourning and fearful for their last daughter, prayed for the help, and the outcast god Susanoo descended down to answer their call. In a fierce battle, Susanoo tricked the beast into consuming sake, which made it drunk, allowing Susanoo to slice Orochi's heads off. The daughter, grateful for her savior, married the outcast god Susanoo and became the Princess Kushinada. And their children, as well as grandchildren and their children's children, carried the Kushinada's blood down their family for generations. Momiji and Katie naturally being descended from that family tree, carrying the Kushinada's bloodline. The first two episodes are a bit chaotic, I'll admit. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say they're the weakest of the bunch. It's mostly setup and exposition, although it kinda needs to be that way. It starts out fine, a flashback to Katie's last moments before she died, as well as Kusanagi witnessing her death alongside Kunikita and Takeuchi. It's a dramatic and fairly decent way to hook attention early. But from that, it gets a little bit stilted. Sure, we see Momiji doing her spiritual training, and they explain that she's Katie's sister. The series also takes the liberty to show that even years later, the TAC members are still upset over Katie's death. So that's fine, nothing too crazy so far, but it's a series of events following this which can make you scratch your head a bit. Or at least I did anyways. I mean, Kusanagi just flat out appears and says he needs to kill her with that weirdly delivered line. Of course, she's saved, but it doesn't stop from feeling all a little sudden, which again can come off as weird for the first two episodes. And it does seem like it's gonna pick up with the sudden appearance of Orochi, who manifests to a withered tree to try and kill Momiji. The amount of screaming, running, as well as panty shots can really take me out of the moment and make me feel like I'm watching a cheesy horror flick. That being said, it is a necessary part of the story, and thankfully it only really lasted the first two episodes for me. But I can definitely see why it'd throw people for a loop. From there, Momiji is taken into custody with the TAC and intends to help, alongside Kusanagi, find a way to save everyone without a sacrifice, discover the truth Katie mentioned before her death, and stop the Aragami menace. It isn't exactly a mission-based structure, but the episodes are, well, episodic. They carry their own weight and impact on the story, as well as covering subplots. Episode 3, for instance, wastes no time on Momiji, proving she can be useful and doesn't want to be a burden to the group. Other episodes focuses on separate characters' subplots like Matsudera, spending a day with her husband and child, trying to make the most of their remaining bond. Or like how they try and get Yageshi to buckle up and become more brave and believe in himself. Komei learns to be more of a team player, Kunikita and Takeuchi's bond growing outside of work, and introduce Sakura, to name a few things. It's good classic world building with character development mixed well within, as well as fights with the Aragami and more revelations slowly being made as it goes on. It's done in a fashion that feels like it's both filling time but also progressing the story naturally. The plot is this way up until episode 8 or so, with the introduction of the mysterious Murakumo, a man with several Mitama embedded in him just like Kusanagi, who fights the Aragami with ease and for his own reasons. It's by no means a secret or subtle, but Murakumo is in fact, gasp, a villain. I mean, with the flowing, long, dark blue nephrite hair, obvious rival counterpowers, and a deeply voiced laugh, it isn't really trying to make it a secret that he's evil, but they do succeed in masking his motivation. I think this is actually kind of clever, since when you can definitely know he's evil upon first sight, you don't really know why or what for, so you start to come up with ideas. It makes you think, and I really like it when animes do this, since it invests the viewers. Like, for instance, what's this talk about unpierced souls? He claims to have a master, but we aren't exactly told who the Aragami is. Is he not the boss? Why does he have blue seeds in him just like Kusanagi? On several occasions, he fights with Kusanagi and has the edge with the 8th Mitama, allowing him to fly and have other abilities like teleportation. It's actually great build-up, because he's always one step ahead of Kusanagi, and you want to see Kusanagi wipe that smug grin off his face. Luckily, however, Kusanagi does have a way of going head-to-head with Murakumo. Since Momiji has a blue seed embedded in her, she can actually help Kusanagi fight and go head-to-head with Murakumo on more even grounds. We have a decent amount of run-ins with Murakumo. I generally think he's a good villain and solid rival. Not every antagonist needs to be bombastically powerful or even a direct threat, but they keep him both mysterious and subtle in his own way. The inclusion of Murakumo is where the story starts to be less episodic and the general narrative comes back to connect everything more and more. Character subplots begin to tie into the main plot till the story is mostly focusing on the conflict at hand during the latter half of the series. Yageshi by then had buckled up, Momiji had buckled up and became braver too, Komei is more of a team player, Kunikita and Takeuchi are more in touch with each other, Matsudera is more determined than ever. We got the team all assembled, and our group of villains are, well, starting to assemble too. Momiji also has some bit of development too, like her feeling like she's not gonna be the Kushinada the world needs. The Kushinada is supposed to protect the world and save them, not like how Susanoo saved Kushinada. However, with Momiji knowing that Katie died and Katie was always more skilled to her, despite them not being all that close, it is a really good character struggle. Her fear, doubt, lack of faith. Will they truly find a way to beat the Aragami? Well, rest assured, the TAC won't let that happen, even with Murakumo pulling shady stuff. A couple more episodes in, and we reach the halfway mark, around episode 13 or 14. Murakumo is deep underground with a large Mitama that has been empowered by several of the impure Aragami souls he slayed in order to power it, as well as a cloaked figure behind him, ready to awaken this blue seed, and surely a huge, new, more powerful Aragami. Momiji's Mitama begins to act up, and she's pulled to the location of Murakumo in his hidden lair. Kusanagi naturally follows, and once snapped out of the mystical force she's under, Kusanagi and Momiji demand to know what is going on, and Murakumo reveals that this large Mitama will give birth to the revived Susanoo, progenitor god of the Aragami. This actually puts a bit of a flip on the lore, since in the context of the big mythology lesson at the start, this would mean by this revelation not only was Orochi an Aragami back then, but also Susanoo created him, and seeing his creation act up, it would make sense for Susanoo want to put down his own corrupt and wicked creation. Surprised the parents let the daughter marry him knowing that, but I guess the Kushinada back then just had a thing for fighters. Susanoo has taken the form of a young child and still requires more life force before Murakumo and the rogue figure can execute their master plan. In an awesome, albeit admittedly rushed scene, the the cloaked figure, I swear this is giving me so many Lila vibes, is Katie. Yes, as good of a twist as this is, it happens seconds into the... It doesn't help with the line delivery either. But, hey, it is still fascinating. Jokes aside. Katie is still around, but why is she on the side of the Aragami? Before we get any answers, the underground hideout collapses, and this forces Momiji and Kusanagi to flee, while the villain trio can make their escape. Now that we've reached the halfway point of the series, we're basically over the episodic plot structure, but there are a few here and there. It's actually a lot like Wild Arms now that I think about it. No wonder why Katie reminded me of Lila so much. Except there's no interview with the Empire episode here. Seriously, that one sucked. Between a few smaller scale Aragami threats, run-ins with Murakumo, Susanoo, and Katie, everyone out there is just trying to stop. It becomes a race for power. Now, before I proceed, I have to address this. While I said the reveal of Katie being one of the Aragami is a sick twist, I was admittedly worried, since knowing this series had been building up the bond between Momiji and Kusanagi, I had this gut feeling with the past of Katie in mind, this would be another damn love triangle, and you can bet the first freaking thought that crossed my mind was comparing this to Miss Undead Priestess Bitch Kikyo and her god-awful episodes. I mean, come on, can you not see the similarities here? And to my utter shock, they really didn't take it in that direction. Like, I'm impressed. It would have been so easy to do and sweep it under the rug. But no, it's not a, oh, you betrayed me, oh, you're on the evil side now. It's not that, and I am actually kind of impressed. While there is still a sentimental attachment to Katie, Kusanagi doesn't want to fight her, but he's also devastated, demanding to know why she's aligned herself with the very demons she as the Kushinada was meant to protect the human race from. This also applies to Kunikita, who is in just as much disbelief that his daughter is around pulling the strings in a world-ending scheme. Katie's motive is also kind of fascinating. At first, it might seem like a generic, oh, you are killing the plants, you humans industrialize and hurt nature, rada. And okay, while that is certainly part of her reasoning, that's not all there is to it. It's not just a don't kill the plants, sonny, moral of the story thing. It actually has to do a bit of a parallel to Momiji's feeling about purpose. Not only did Katie realize upon her death, with the Aragami being creatures of nature, they too have purpose, and with them directly being connected to Susanoo, just like the Kushinada, her purpose begins to make a bit more sense. The Aragami are essentially the children of the Kushinada and the god Susanoo. And with Katie being the next Kushinada, why would she not want to protect her children? Sure, that was the purpose of the first Kushinada years ago, but why would Katie suddenly feel this way? Well, take this into account. Katie's motive also revolves around lacking purpose, and how, as the Kushinada, she defended a world that literally just found temporary fleeting happiness, only for it to brew up once again. The whole cycle would repeat, the Aragami would awaken, more Kushinada bloodline people would die, and she was just another stepping stone in the road. Can you really blame her for feeling that way? Realizing that her death basically meant nothing since the Aragami would come back anyways? Her plan is by using the god Susanoo, she can reduce the world to its most base state, a garden of plants, and from there, the world would begin new. Species will be born from the wild like it was millions of years ago, and the Kushinada alongside the god Susanoo will create a world that's worth protecting. This is actually a pretty deep motive, as well as a surprisingly intricate plot, and that's just for a mere 26 episode anime. It's also a unique take on the world-ending calamity sort of plot, because it's not just world domination or destroying the world for evil. Katie thinks what she's doing is genuinely good, and she's going to be purifying the world by making it a place that's worth protecting. Even when the party gets into action, Susanoo as a child has an overwhelming amount of spiritual powers, and even then, that's only assuming the party can get past Murakumo and Katie. Evidently, Murakumo also has something to gain out of this world of plants plot, since as an Aragami himself, he wouldn't be reset since Aragami are already plants anyways. So many large tree-like towers erupt from the ground, and it's only a matter of time before they bloom and spread a ton of mitamas, which will reset the world to its base state. The public finds out about this, and the government even orders the TAC to just sacrifice Momiji and stop this catastrophic plan before it can even happen. However, after all the time they spent, the TAC will not let that happen, and Kusanagi even goes after Murakumo personally, seeing as they're both Aragami but fighting on completely opposite sides for contrasting reasons. In a desperate and honestly pretty damn intense fight, Kusanagi is impaled and seemingly killed right in front of Momiji's eyes before she's taken into custody by the government. With some help from the TAC, they manage to break her out and have her in a secluded cabin, making a sort of counteroffensive plan on the fly. Worried about Kusanagi, Momiji clutches onto her blue seed, praying his body wasn't eviscerated after Murakumo slashes it up and sends him to the bottom of the ocean too. Speaking of which, he actually did recover Kusanagi's body and bring him to the new lair where the matured Susanoo has his body far more adult-like, thus signifying his gain in power. Murakumo, to his shock, realizes his Aragami associates are no longer responding to his orders. Finding something fishy, he immediately goes to the TAC cabin and kidnaps Momiji, holding her hostage. Murakumo takes her to the base, and Momiji clicks her walkie-talkie broadcasting her location for the TAC to be able to follow her. While inside, Murakumo demands from Katie an answer to what's going on, and Katie apologizes, revealing she has been deceiving Murakumo, saying that Susanoo needs more power, and chose to sap life force from his associates, seeing as they were the most powerful thing and close by. Momiji sees Kusanagi's body has been personally tended to by Katie, who wanted to use his blue seeds to feed Susanoo. Murakumo is having none of this, seeing his personal agenda being thrown into the mess by this. After seeing Katie has no intention of letting the Aragami continue to exist, and they'll even be reset too alongside Murakumo if they're not fed, he deems Katie a traitor and tries to slice her down. But Momiji actually chooses to defend her sister. However, Susanoo begins to awaken, and this causes devastation across the whole city. The final set of episodes is mostly a big over-the-top action scene. Murakumo and his few remaining associates decide to sabotage both the TAC and Katie/Susanoo's plan so they can establish their kingdom of the Aragami. By now, Katie is merged with Susanoo, turning into a god-like tower of monstrosity. The TAC makes a machine that is supposed to basically amplify the Kushinada's pulse and put all the Aragami to sleep, but it doesn't go quite as planned, and it's busted before they can make full use of it. Momiji is caught by Murakumo, but Kusanagi comes to her defense, with him having Momiji's blue seed now embedded in his body. The fight with Murakumo starts off actually pretty favorable, as Kusanagi can now go head-to-head. The long, nephrite-haired rival, despite getting overpowered, has one more trick up his sleeve, transforming, revealing his true form. Murakumo is in fact Orochi. It isn't that shocking of a twist. I mean, there really is only one named Aragami it could have been. That being said, it is an effective moment since it actually makes a ton of sense when you think about it. Seriously, Orochi had given Kusanagi his mitamas as a child with the intent of using him as a pawn, as well as powering him up. No Aragami other than Orochi has been shown to be capable of bestowing power to other creatures through blue seeds. Seeing as Murakumo also has the same ability makes sense, seeing as Orochi would be able to replicate that effect. It also makes sense that he'd want his own kingdom of Aragami and the god Susanoo when he realizes their purpose. So, taking the form of the multi-headed serpent he donned all those years ago, Momiji, Kusanagi, and the others weaken him down. But like the snake, he tries to absorb the power by biting into the almighty Susanoo. However, the overwhelming energy of the god is too much even for him, and in this state, Katie and Susanoo blast him away, forever defeating Orochi, thus crushing his plans of becoming the Origami King for good. However, there is still Katie and Susanoo to deal with, and Momiji really comes through here. Not only as a Kushinada, but also as a person. She straight up goes face to face in front of Katie, who's merged with Susanoo, and tells her she is wrong. The world she's trying to create, a perfect garden, a paradise, would just be built on lies and more hatred in a world they are in now. Of course, Katie plays the whole "you don't understand what I went through" card, but Momiji doesn't have to. Both of them are sisters. Both of them are Kushinada. Both of them want to protect this world, even if they're not the closest of siblings, even if they don't agree on the exact method of how it should be done, or what a perfect world is. Momiji is not going to back down, and with some back and forth of Katie's denial, but Momiji's constant drive to do the right thing, she actually manages to talk her sister out of it. Katie, seeing the people all around the globe get up, cheer Momiji, wanting her to save the world. And from this, Katie actually decides that this world, as flawed as she once saw it, is actually worth saving. The planet does have good people, and that sure, life might suck. You might not get the things you want. The economy might be garbage. You might not be able to have enough food. You might be born into bad families. But you know what? That's what makes the world the world. So, Katie decides to use all the energy she gathered in Susanoo to purify all the origami of evil intent, which would mean Kusanagi could live, and any other origami that were potentially good would continue to exist too. She puts her faith into Momiji and restores all the damage done to Japan as well. Finally, Momiji and Katie have one last talk, with them letting her spirit go to rest. This is actually a pretty heartfelt goodbye, if I'm being honest. Following the recovery and the other TAC members doing their thing, Momiji and Kusanagi share a kiss off-screen. That is Blue Seed. It's certainly not a mind-blowing or exactly innovative story, but I don't really think it was trying to be that. Not everything needs to be, Cowboy Bebop or Evangelion, although I will admit, if you liked those series, I recommend giving Evangelion a try. It's got that old-timey charm you might like, and while the story isn't anything revolutionary, there's just something fun in its simplicity, and even if the voice acting or a few other things can be a little cheesy, I think there's charm in that. Overall, Blue Seed was a surprisingly good watch. It's also incredibly underrated. Maybe forgotten, underrated. I don't know what the right term is, but I just haven't heard a lot of people talk about this series. And again, if you like stuff like Trigun, Evangelion, Cowboy Bebop, give this one a watch. It's a really surprisingly underappreciated series that I feel like if more people had watched it or talked about it, it might get a bit of a cult following. One more thing before I give a overall score. I have to say this. The Blu-ray set for Blue Seed is one of the best I've ever seen. Right here. This is how it's done. You see this right here? All the episodes, including the OVAs and bonus features, the Omake Theater, bloopers, all on one disc. One. It also has a really good, sleeve art, with, stuff from the anime. In fact, the case actually shows stuff from the manga. There's actually different stuffs on the back. It's all on one disc. Yes, it is SD quality or standard definition or whatever, but I really am not. I'm okay with that since this is an old anime. I wouldn't expect them to make a big HD remaster, and if it fits it all on one disc, that's a lot better for me. So yeah, and best of all, it's an affordable price. I got this for like $30. Who knows if it'll change price years later. We don't know how the economy is gonna be. I guess Katie may have been right about that one. But still. Anyways, with that said, I'm gonna give Blue Seed an 8.9 out of 10. It's just a really fun series. I might be overrating it a little bit with that score, but I'm not gonna deny I had a really fun time here. So, with that said, I'm Quinn866. Have a good one. And what the heck are these episode names?
There are lots of secrets to be revealed in the next episode of Blue Seed. Surprise! She's the mother of science?
No wonder Matsudera's divorced.